it's Mrs. Pound, and I'm back with more for Chapter 3.1 on crust movement. So we're going to talk today about Section 3.1.2 on plate boundaries. So our objectives today are to describe the characteristics of different plate boundaries, explain the process of seafloor spreading, and infer how seafloor spreading and subduction work together to recycle the Earth's crust. So the first thing we have to know about are plate boundaries. This is the point at which one tectonic plate meets another. So what I want to do is I want to take a look at our New York State Earth Science reference tables on page 5. So this is page 5 of your reference tables, and it says tectonic plates at the top of it. And you will see a map with these boundaries. And it has labels like Eurasian plate and North American plate and Pacific plate and Indian Australian plate and other plates. The crust of the Earth is broken up into these, what they call plates. And there are boundaries between the plates, and there are different things happening at each of these boundaries. And the symbols tell us what is happening at the boundaries. If we go down here, and we're going to talk more about these words later as well, we're going to focus on divergent and convergent today though. So a divergent plate boundary, this is where the plates are moving apart. They are diverging. They are dividing, okay? D and dividing. It sounds like dividing. There are also converging plate boundaries. This is where they are coming together. So convergent means coming together. Okay? And so when you see these symbols, these rectangles here, this means right here that the plates are coming together. So the Nazca plate is moving into the South American plate. They are coming together, and they even have arrows up here to show you that they are coming together, that they are converging. Over here at the East Pacific Ridge, and actually more famous is the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, these are diverging. They are spreading apart. You can tell from the symbols and from the arrows here that they are coming apart. They are diverging, and we're going to talk about in the lecture different landforms that form when you are converging versus diverging. And you can take a look on this map. There are all kinds of places where we have convergence and divergence. Okay, so this is going to be a useful tool for you. And it's always available to you. Okay, so don't forget, you always have these New York State Earth Science reference tables for you to use on a quiz or a test. So this is something you don't necessarily have to memorize, and you can look at this picture and help you to remember the terminology and what the different things we're talking about are from the reference tables. So let's first talk about convergent boundaries, where the plates are coming together. Okay, so most scientists believe tectonic plate movement is caused by convection currents. And in the background here, in this picture, this is a model of convection currents in the mantle. The darker, the redder colors mean that it's hotter. And so we see the red, and we see that as this goes up and forms kind of a mushroom, the colors get lighter and they start to curve and fall in a convection current movement. And there are two of these in this picture in the background. Now, what happens at a convergent boundary is a process called subduction. This is the process of one tectonic plate being pushed under another tectonic plate. And so if we look at this picture down here, we see these convection currents again. They're going up. They're pushing these plates away from each other. We're coming down. We'll go to the left here. And this plate is subducting underneath the other plate. This is the overriding plate. This is the subduction plate. And you'll notice if you take a look at that key on the bottom, and I'm looking at your reference tables over here. So you might want to have your reference tables, page 5, right there, so you can look at that too. On the convergent plate boundary at the bottom of the key, it shows that there's an overriding plate and there is a subducting plate. These form trenches and mountains. If we take a look at this diagram here, here is labeled a trench that where they meet, a trench is formed. And it doesn't show it over here, but the overriding plate is pushed up and it forms mountains. And so a trench is a deep underwater valley. And I have a picture of the earth, and this is more of a relief kind of map to show you heights. Here, I'm going to focus on South America. If you look on your tectonic plate map on page 5, you'll see that there is a convergent boundary on the left-hand side, actually the west side of South America. And the darker brown colors mean that there are mountains there. These are the Andes Mountains. And if you can see this, I don't know if you can quite see this, there is a darker blue line in the ocean right up close to South America. It is darker blue because it is deeper there. That is an ocean trench. That, in fact, looking at page 5 over here, is the Peru-Chile Trench. So you have a trench and you have mountains on the continent, on the overriding plate. Now let's talk about divergent boundaries. These form ocean ridges or mountains. And two places where you can see some divergent boundaries, and I know they're kind of hidden under this, but here in the middle, you see this lighter color. This is a mid-ocean ridge, and these are mountains in the ocean, but we don't call them mountains, we call them ridges. Okay, so this is a mountain range underwater. It is, I believe, now it's been a while, I believe this is the longest mountain range in the world. The longest mountain ranges are not on land, they are underwater. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, so we have a mountain range over there. We also have over here between and I'm looking at my map again, because I don't memorize this stuff, right? I have my map to refer to. The Arabian plate and the African plate, we have this body of water right here, okay? And that is at a divergent plate boundary. And correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that the Red Sea that's so famous in the Bible, right? Okay, so that is a divergent plate boundary. And notice there are mountains on either side of it. All that brown are the mountains on either side of that divergent plate. So an oceanic ridge is a mountain range that forms on the ocean floor where tectonic plates pull apart. Evidence that is used to support seafloor spreading is radiometric dating and magnetic striping. Now remember, radiometric dating, this is more an old Earth scientist thing to use. Young Earth scientists do not agree completely with it and its time scales. And magnetic striping as well. More old Earth scientists, young Earth scientists would agree that the magnetic field does switch, and it has switched. There is evidence for it. But they would disagree on the time scale, where an old Earth scientist would say that it takes thousands and millions of years. A younger scientist would say that it takes only hundreds of years, and they would point to evidence that they have found in the sediments of lakes to support that. So it depends upon your worldview, what time scale you're looking at on this. So subduction and seafloor spreading work together to recycle the Earth's crust. If we take a look here, oh, there's my pointer. Okay, so right here we have the crust dividing, diverging. It's pulling apart. It is moving and being subducted over here. So seafloor spreading, making new lithosphere, subducting over here and being recycled and going down and melted in part of the rock cycle. Crust is lost as the ocean floor is subducted into the mantle and destroyed in the process. The crust is replenished through the oceanic ridge and creates new crust. Older crust is pushed away from the ridge, and the older crust could be subducted under the continental crust at a convergent boundary, then recycled back into the mantle. So our objectives were to describe the characteristics of different plate boundaries, to explain the process of seafloor spreading, and infer how seafloor spreading and subduction work together to recycle the Earth's crust. So don't forget your 5 questions, and I will be back soon with another video.